Russia-Ukraine news. India will be attending peace talks for Ukraine that will be hosted by Saudi Arabia. A spokesperson for India's foreign ministry said at a press briefing on Thursday that their country would be sending representatives to the peace talks on Ukraine that will be hosted by Saudi Arabia on August 5 and 6. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky proposed a peace plan earlier this year, and Saudi Arabia has invited Western nations, Ukraine, and some major developing countries to discuss it. The Foreign Ministry spokesperson for India, Arindam Bagchi, has confirmed that Saudi Arabia has extended an invitation to New Delhi to attend a meeting in Jeddah. India will be attending and taking part in this. The United States is committed to participating because, we have always believed that dialogue and diplomacy are the best way forward, he said. On Monday, even though they weren't invited, Russia said they'd be keeping tabs on the talks. Russia's Kremlin was reportedly not invited to the negotiations by Ukraine. In his plan, Zelensky proposes that all Russian troops be withdrawn from Ukraine and that the country's post-Soviet borders be reinstated. On the margins of the G7 summit in Japan in May, the Ukrainian leader extended an invitation to Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India to join his peace plan. VIAN was commonly known as a mainly Russian operator before Vladimir Putin sent tanks and troops across the border with Ukraine. The company, ultimately controlled by Russian oligarch Mikhail Fridman, was headquartered in Amsterdam and had operations in countries ranging from Bangladesh to the Ukraine, but it owed roughly half of its business to the Russian market. When the United States and European Union took action against Russia and Russian companies in response to Putin's invasion of Ukraine, it was a nightmare for VEON's management. VEON's response was to immediately begin de-Russifying the organization. Fridman resigned from the VIAN board in March 2022, days before the start of the war, after being expelled from Letter One, the Luxembourg-based investment group that is VEON's largest shareholder. VimpelCom, the Russian branch, was put up for sale in the latter half of that year. In a $2.2 billion deal, VIAN agreed to sell VimpelCom to local managers led by CEO Alexander Torbakhov. Despite VimpelCom's status as a discontinued business for a number of months, selling the company has been complicated. VIAN CEO Kaan Terzioglu told Light Reading, "There are rules and regulations and we're committed to complying and they are multiplying like rabbits." But he's sure the process of de-Russification will be completed in the coming weeks now. "I am positive that we will be able to close this deal before our bonds mature in October," as he put it. In order to cancel the Eurobonds held by VimpelCom, VIAN had to submit paperwork to clearinghouses like Euroclear and Clearstream. Meanwhile, Terzioglu has decided to step down from his position on VimpelCom's board of directors. Let your debts finally die. In his opinion, this will result in a revitalized VIAN that is better able to re-enter the capital markets and return its attention to its core mission of bringing internet access and other digital services to the roughly 510 million people who live in emerging markets. "We're a leaner operation without Russia," he said. "When compared to the competition, we grow faster and are more profitable." Following the separation of VimpelCom in 2021, total group employment dropped to 16,422 in 2018, as detailed in the company's most recent annual report filed with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. Group headquarters expenses in Amsterdam are down 55% since VimpelCom was classified as a discontinued business, according to a report by Terzioglu. He explained that the board had shrunk from 11 members to 7. "Our headquarters even accelerated decentralization further and took $85 million of cost out of the cost base." Terzioglu claims that once the deal goes through, VIAN will be able to shed nearly $5 billion in debt as a result of the divestment. On June 30, VIAN reported a gross debt of $5.2 billion, excluding VimpelCom from this figure. The previous year's total, which included business in Russia, was $12.3 billion. As a result, the leverage is drastically different. VEON's net debt-to-earnings ratio was 3.8 in June 2022, after adjusting for VimpelCom. Without it, in a year, the ratio will have dropped to 1.3. All of this should encourage investment, like VEON's $600 million pledge to Ukraine, which is now the company's largest revenue generator, ahead of even Pakistan. First-half capital expenditures were down 32% from the prior year period, coming in at around $262 million. Nonetheless, at 18.7% of sales, capital intensity is still quite high. Terzioglu denies that VEON is not investing enough, and he attributes the company's recent decline to fluctuations in the exchange rate and issues in Pakistan. Because of the country's currency crisis, the government in Pakistan did not allow us to import equipment, he explained. According to the company's CEO, "We do investment wherever it is needed and wherever we can, and if you look at the details of the Ukraine results, you will see that our capex investment has increased by 35% in Ukraine as we are building the network every day." The Ukrainian arm of VEON, Kyivstar, spent about $38 million on capital expenditures in the second quarter, or about 20% of its quarterly revenue. Toffee pudding, also known as sticky toffee pudding. VEON's operations continue to look good when measured in local currency but poorly when translated into US dollars. Although quarterly sales were up nearly 20% year-over-year, the reported figure was down 4.3% to $916 million. EBITDA also increased by nearly 14% in local currency terms, but decreased by about 11% in US dollar terms, to $415 million. Do you worry that VEON will struggle to pay its dollar-denominated debts in the future due to currency weakness and rising interest rates? Terzioglu highlights inflation-linked price increases that boosted July's reported figures by nearly 4%. In the end, we can shield ourselves from further depreciations, which is great news for our investors. While currency and interest rate fluctuations are out of Terzioglu's control, his investors should be pleased with how he has handled operations at the company's various divisions. VEON has updated its full-year guidance, stating that it expects 16 to 19% growth in local currency sales and a 10 to 14% increase in earnings. Speaking about VEON's growing business, he boasted, "We are not only gaining market share but also wallet share," before listing off the various banking, entertainment, and other services offered by VEON subsidiaries. Under Terzioglu's leadership, VEON has quickly hired software developers and launched its own services to capitalize on the relative absence of US streaming platforms and internet companies in its emerging markets. Rather than relying on fees for these services to fuel expansion, businesses have found that increased interaction with customers is the key to success. Terzioglu sees a huge opportunity to win over customers of VEON's competitors, Grameenphone and Robi, by offering them access to VEON's video platform, Toffee. "I know that these 6 million people are consuming 6 times more data and driving your growth, too. So my message to competition is watch us and either send us a thank you message or get ready for us to come after them." Toffee consumers enjoy special benefits as a valued customer. The competition has been forewarned.